Good morning, guys. Welcome to Glasgow Rangers Nation. I'm Owen James. This is your Rangers news update, guys. It is the 12th of November. We are in the heart of the international break, and it's another boring 2 weeks of just nothingness, of pointless football, of pointless games played just for no reason. Genuinely, I honestly hate international breaks. I just find them the biggest waste of time ever. Honestly, international football should be banned or done away with or something. It's just an absolute waste of effort. It really genuinely is. Right, let's talk a little bit, shall we, of obviously transfer speculation. I mean, that's where we're up to at the moment. Obviously, Danny Rule has 2 weeks to work with the players who haven't headed off on international duty, which is positive, I suppose. You know, to give Danny time to get his ideas across to some of those players that haven't headed off on the internationals to go and play for their countries. I mean, obviously, you know, unfortunately, it will be the better players that have gone off to play for their countries. Although, you know, some will go off and play who are not what you would describe as better players. I suppose Yusuf Chimiti going off for the Portugal under-21s is a bit. I don't know how that happened, but there we go. Anyway, we'll talk a bit of striker debacle. We've got a situation that I think really just show that Kevin Thelwell is way over beyond his head. He's just genuinely an idiot. We'll talk a little bit about that. We've got a bit on Bayrami and a bit on the centre-back who has been linked with a move to the club. Let's start with news about Nadmi Bayrami. Now, Nadmi Bayrami, look, I'm split on this one. I really genuinely am split on old Nadmi Bayrami because, look, at the end of the day, he hasn't, I don't think, had a fair crack of the whip at Rangers. He has, I believe, you know, he's kind of been misused. When he first came into the club, he was, you know, cited as this 10, this you know, creative player to play in behind the striker and you know, or the strikers, and cause a load of trouble, create chances, etc., unlock the low block. But look, he never has had that. You know, he's kind of been pushed out onto the left wing, and with the best will in the world, he's not a left winger. You know, he's been played out of position. You know, he's had the odd good game, like the League Cup final where he marked McGregor out of the game. He's scored the odd goal. He's not part of the Europa League squad. There were apparently offers on the table for him in the in the summer transfer window, offers that weren't taken up. I don't know why. If you're not going to use the player, why keep him? But it now looks like in January there may be a way out for Nadmi Bayrami. He certainly hasn't featured, you know, under Danny Rule. He doesn't seem to have a part to play in the club. And with the World Cup coming up in the summer, Nadmi Bayrami obviously is anxious to get first team minutes, whether or not Albania qualify. Although I don't think they're going to qualify at this moment. I'll have a little check on that one. But look, you know, at the end of the day, he's a good footballer. He wants to play football. He wants to be part of that. You know, they're second in the group behind England. They've got a chance of qualifying, I suppose. But, you know, look, he wants to play first team football. So the chances that he will be moved on in the summer, with Italian and German clubs reportedly interested in securing Nadmi Bayrami's services. Look, like I said, I don't think he's had a fair crack at the whip. I think he's a player. But, you know, look, if the manager doesn't see him as part of his plans, if it's the manager that's calling the shots, I don't know. It could be Thelwell, the idiot. I don't know. But look, if it's a case that he's not part of the plans, then yeah, move him on. You know, end his pain. Let him go somewhere where he is going to have first team minutes for the club. Right, look. The Rangers striker debacle. Where are we up to with that? Now, look, as I said on the video the other day, you know, we spent you know, $6 million on Danilo, $8.5 million on Chimiti. I mean, who is genuinely one of the worst footballers I have ever seen in my entire life. And I've watched Sunday Park football. You know, I've walked my dog through the park on Sunday, and I've seen better 16, 18 stone players than Yusuf Chimiti. I really genuinely have. And Bojan Miovski, look, I think Bojan Miovski's had a bit of a tough break of it, if I'm being honest with you. Look, the guy is not a target man, you know, and a lot of time when he comes on, the balls are pumped in the air towards him, and his hold-up play, that he's not the best. They say, well, that's not his game. His game is to play on the shoulder of the last man and be slipped in, and I think he's better as part of a two. You know, he obviously played up top with two at Aberdeen, with Sokola. He never really got much of a crack at the whip in Girona, never played a lot of minutes. So, you know, he is, I suppose, not match sharp, match rusty. He's a bit match rusty in terms of, you know, where we're up to with that. So, look, I think, you know, he hasn't really had, again, a fair crack at the whip. Now, there are reports coming out of the club that one or both of these strikers may be loaned out in the January transfer window. Yes, that's right. 13 million pounds worth of talent may well be loaned out to different clubs around Europe to try and get them some first team minutes and try and get them a bit match sharper to get them ready to play football for Rangers next season. Now, you may ask, well, if that happens, what do we do? Well, according to reports, Rangers are drawing up lists, and Danny Rule has asked Kevin Thelwell and his son, I mean, it's just ridiculous, to find him 2 proven strikers in the January transfer window. So that is the report, that Rangers are very much in the market for strikers in January. However, to me, whatever happens, whether we bring in 2 strikers in January, and I hope we do, because we desperately need strikers, guys, because the strikers we've got are not cutting the mustard, you know. As I showed you on that graphic the other day, 4 goals, or was it 5 goals? I can't remember now. Between the 3 of them is pretty pathetic. But for me, it just is smacks of absolute incompetence that Kevin Thelwell was allowed to spend £13 million on 2 strikers he is now going to have to loan out in January to try and get the best out of them and try and get them ready, possibly, maybe, for next season. I genuinely do not know how this man, A, has the nerve to go to Andrew Kavanagh, Parag Marathe and the Rangers board and say this, and B, is still in a job. I mean, I'm not being funny, but if I had someone working for me who was as galactically incompetent and galactically useless as Kevin Thelwell, I would have sacked them by now. Honestly, would have managed them out of the business on the grounds that they are incompetent. And like I said, to me, this is a joke. It is a joke. Personally, I would sell Chimiti for $850,000, for £8.50, for 85p in January to anyone who wants him, whether it's the dog and duck from the corner of Peckham High Street, or whether it is, I don't know, you know, some 2-bob League 1, League 2 team in England. I genuinely don't think he's got a future in any sort of shape of football. The guy is, like I said, an absolute clodhopper. He is a car horse. He is just shite. I mean, look, I was never a fan of Cyril Dessers, but this man makes Cyril Dessers look like CR7. He really genuinely does. Look, Bojan Miovski, I think, could have a future, but it depends on, you know, what happens with this. But again, like I said to you, I just found the whole situation utterly shambolic from Rangers. I think the way this club is being run, you know, still, and look, I was all for the old board being got rid of, and I think we did the right thing because the Parks were a disease within the club. But the new board and the way they're running the club, or the people they're trusting to run the club, are just fucking useless. Absolutely useless. And like I said, Kevin Thelwell is the biggest moron on planet Earth. He is, I mean, proper retarded. He just is useless. So, yeah, I mean, look, links to 2 strikers, obviously. Hopefully they're decent. Hopefully we can get someone who's proven. I just think it's ridiculous that we've come to this point. You know, we were in a situation where we could have had Shankland and Braga for 800,000, I think it was, between the 2 of them. And we ballsed it up. So get it right in January. I mean, it does scare me, obviously, having Kevin Thelwell buying players in January, and the thought that the scouting team apparently have drawn up a list. I mean, what colour crayon did Robbie Thelwell use to draw the list and then colour it in afterwards is my key question on this one. Also, Rangers apparently the link to Majad Sadiq, I think is how you say it. I mean, let's face it, Sadiq is a very unfortunate last name, isn't it? I mean, I do remember having a conversation with one of my colleagues who was going to call it his son. I mean, nothing wrong with this name. You know, it's a decent name in the Indian culture, Hardik. Until we pointed out that in English schools he would get the absolute piss taken out of him because basically his name was Hard Dick. You know, so you'd have to be very hard to carry that name off. And I think Sad Dick is another one where I just beggars belief, it really does. You know, Sasha Tovaglieri obviously was a very reliable source, was the first to bring this one. Obviously, Sasha Tovaglieri up there with Fabrizio Romano, David Ornstein, people like that, obviously, that you can rely on, not people who know jack all about football, who bring you stories. Rangers have shown interest in Genk defender Majad Sadiq, I think is how you should say it, not Sadiq, which is just hilarious. Scottish side have made inquiries about the player and could move in the upcoming January transfer window. That was what Sasha Tovaglieri reported. Now, according to a number of sources this morning, an encouraging update has now emerged over Rangers' pursuit of the Genk centre-back Majid Sadiq. it looks like Danny Rule wants to strengthen the back line and doesn't like his options at this moment in time, and believes Sadiq could be the man to add to that list. Now, Sadiq is 25 years old, so still in the prime of his career. He's already played at Ibrox as well, was part of the Genk team that won 1-0. And obviously, so we'll know what the club is like. We'll know the stadium. The defence isn't great. We know that. We know the defence is not brilliant and does need an overhaul. We do need to sign some players who will actually be here next season. So that obviously would be Sadiq. Now, according to a number of sources across the continent, Sadiq is now open to sealing a move to Rangers in the January transfer window. Apparently, he was a player who stood out in that victory for Genk over Rangers. Now, he's valued at around £6 million, which is believed to be a genuine option for Rangers to spend that money on Sadiq. £6 million, viable option. He is very impressive. He's got a 95.9% pass completion rate in the Europa League this season. He averages 6.5 clearances per game, solid on the ball, solid in defence. He is an aggressive defender. A decent player, a very, very decent player. He's, obviously very versatile as well. He can play as a right back, can play as a centre half, can do a number of different it can do a number of different jobs for the club. So there's definitely someone I think that Rangers will and should be looking at going forward. But some interesting transfer points there for you to think about this morning and today, guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, particularly over the striker debacle. And we're back soon, obviously, with another video. Thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed the content, please like, comment, share, and subscribe.